Welcome back to Nothing But Nets. We're going to get into some hot trade rumors. The uh, trade mill, the hot stove, is going crazy with the Nets. I'm joined by my NBA expert analyst, Nate. First, Nate, introduce yourself and, introduce yourself first, tell them where they can find you, and then we'll get into this.
Gary, thanks for having me on as always. I'm on Twitter. You can yell at me there about sports, which I'm in a lot of Nets threads thanks to this show now. It's always getting lots of comments and notifications about our Brooklyn Nets. But yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about some exciting future prospects and possible trade prospects for our Nets and stop watching number 12 every single night.
No, I'm still not going to. Evwalman. Evwalman? I'm still not going to try to
I
say it.
don't I don't want to pronounce it because I don't want him to be a net much longer. So I don't ever want to get the name and then he's gone the next day. I know that's happening.
He scored 22 the other night, which was intriguing. Uh, the Nets just have I understand it's an atrocious lineup, but they have this winning kind of way about them where someone steps up and everyone contributes, right? Like he had
But in
22 last night. He's a G
but
leaguer.
in my opinion, that has more to do with again, we've talked about how nobody cares about NBA regular season basketball.
For sure.
But the one people that do are the people that are fringe NBA players that need to make money and need to put food on the table. And that's almost the entire Nets active roster that's not on the injured list right now. So
Yeah.
you're going to see them play hard against guys that are like, whoa, I thought we were in the NBA. We're just relaxing, shooting
Yeah.
jump shots.
It's certainly. I said this early. I said this before the season started. Specifically early in the season, the Nets were going to steal some wins just on hustle and effort, and you saw that. And now, they lost to Utah. That train has kind of gone derailed. They're just really, really bad at this point. I mean, you were there on Monday and Wednesday at the Barclays last week. Do you see this team winning many more games with that lineup?
No, that lineup is nearly impossible. It's kind of it was sad to watch. I mean, it was one of the few times in the last probably 15 years of basketball that I've seen any lineup without NBA playmakers or NBA shooters. Like it was almost the whole starting lineup was like, I'll gap that guy and let him shoot his first three or four threes, which we saw them do with Clowney, who was like 0 for 6 from three to start off like four dribbles to start the game in the first two quarters. And and their best playmaker was Keon Johnson, who will play off 2 feet in the post and then but he's 6'4", and then he's trying to take a step through shot that if it hits the rim as a Nets fan, you feel was a good possession. Like it's tough to watch an offense in 2025 NBA, which is predicated on 3-point shooting and at least having one primary ball handler. Like we saw, we got the job done with Dennis Schroeder. Like that's the baseline of what you need
Yeah.
to win an NBA game. But if you have Keon Johnson and number 12 and Clowney and Zaire Williams, there's not going to be enough shooting. There's not going to be enough scoring. You're going to miss, and they're going to score in transition, and eventually, no matter what 10-5 run or 10-2 run you might make it an 8-point game. They weren't even close to covering the spread, let alone winning any of those games.
I agreed. It's a horrible look, and it's a look that I don't think they're going to bring back next year. I think they're going to be, I don't think next year is going to be a tank year, and that's what I want to get into. Zion Williamson again is in trouble with the Pelicans. He missed a team flight. He got suspended for a game. He played one game. He played well. Then he took the second game off, and then he was suspended for the third game. So he still only played one game, and coming off a suspension now, a team suspension. To me, it seems like Zion's time in New Orleans is coming to an end. That he's worn out his welcome. We'll get into why later, but do you tend to agree with that? Is Zion going to be a Pelican much longer?
It doesn't look like it. It doesn't. I mean, there's not with his contract. He doesn't look like a rebuilding piece that you can even
Yeah.
a young guy. He doesn't look like he's going to help a young guy. You don't even know if he's going to be on the court. So, um, yeah, it's safe to say his time from New Orleans is Hurricane Zion is coming, and it'll be in and out soon.
Now, I've been one of the only people on Nets Twitter, on Nets YouTube, to even consider this as a possibility. But I view the Nets in a far, far worse spot than most other net YouTubers and net Twitter sphere. I think they're an absolute hell. I think even if you got the number one pick and you got Cooper or Harper or Ace and you put Cooper or Harper or Ace on this team, you're still atrocious. You're not even close to competing. That's how bad this roster is. But Zion Williamson plus that guy, I think, has you take a major step forward. And I think you can get Zion relatively cheaply. So first, give me your assessment on Zion Williamson, the player in 2025. How much is left? And can he turns 25 this year. He's still 24. How much is left in the tank? And can he get it all back to where he was in 21, in 21, 22 and those seasons?
I mean, the real question is not how much does he have in the tank, but does he even want to get the car started again? Which is
like basketball. I mean, it's in boxing we say, does he love to fight? If he doesn't love to fight, he's never going to max out. Does Zion Williamson like basketball?
right, but boxing, aren't you playing for a bigger prize if you win?
Ultimately, yeah, it's prize fighting. Ultimately, yeah,
Well, he has
he's already got his
guaranteed
prize.
money.
Yeah,
He has his prize. He seems way more interested in anything but basketball. Like the fact that he's still, we've seen pictures of him completely out of shape. You don't even need to see pictures of him. The proof is in the pudding on how many nights he plays, the amount of injuries he has, um, his funky looking jump shots still after being in the league this long, and you could pay everyone to fix your jumper and shoot 1,000 a day. I'm not interested in 2025 Zion or maybe 2026 Zion at the money he's making. It's just like the Nets got to stop dating crazy women. Like we just had Ben Simmons. Like try for someone who has a good family at home, and just like maybe you need to settle down and reset your life. Like you don't need to go from Ben Simmons to Zion. That'll be too much chaos in our life. Um, and yeah, I just talk about a team that, like you said, you want it because the team is in a worse place than other content creators and other Nets fans think is possible. I mean, I somewhat disagree. They're not in a bad place, but at least they're in this position of flexibility after next year where you can always make a move. Like we saw the other night, the Detroit Pistons, right? How much of a joke were they 2 years ago? They were the Brooklyn Nets walking in,
yeah.
even with a Cade Cunningham, they were laughable. And Cade Cunningham, as we know now, is a walk-in all-star and a point guard almost any team in the NBA would want to run their show. But that team with Cade was a laughing stock, was 20, 30 point blowouts. Like it was Pistons spread betting against them every night. They were a laughing stock. They were the Nets, what we saw this past week. So you're not as far once you get that number one pick. And again, the Nets already had the Cam Thomas that hasn't been playing for a while, which is part of the reason why this offense and team looks the way it does. But I don't know. I still think doing it the right way and not just throwing darts at a dartboard with Zion, and it's not going to win you a championship. So you're just trying to get back into the conversation of being relative on a Thursday night in the NBA in January. I'll pass.
Let me counter that a little bit, right? And I'm not saying I want Zion. I'm strongly considering it. I'm open to the conversation. The Knicks were awful for years. And then they signed Randall and they became relevant. They became at least a playoff team. And then once they got good, they had to trade Randall. But without Randall, they probably don't sign Brunson because they're atrocious. So Randall brought in the piece that made him a contender. And then once they became a legit contender like they are now, okay, sorry, Randall, you got to go. But Randall played well enough. They were able to get Karl-Anthony Towns. So you understand what I'm saying? It's like, okay, I got to walk before I can run here. I got to crawl before I can run. I need to stop
But here,
being
all right,
a disaster
the
and be
Nets.
relevant.
Julius Randle is not the player Zion is. Julius Randle had a lot to prove, and another contract he wanted to get going into that. And we kind of knew the bully ball player Julius was coming from New Orleans. We were just curious if he could do it as not the second fiddle. But I would argue the Nets are already halfway to where the Knicks are. The Knicks' biggest change was that they hired Tom Thibodeau and changed their entire identity, along with Leon Rose, who turns out that an agent can make a great GM and has almost not missed on any of the moves he's made. Like they brought in Julius Randle. They also brought in, people will laugh at me because it's not in the NBA, Elfrid Payton. Elfrid Payton was guarding, like they created a defensive identity. They had Mitch Robinson anchoring the back. They were great offensive rebounding team. Elfrid Payton was lead guard on the ball. Hartenstein was signed to a 2-year deal, which was one of the best signings in recent NBA centers. They brought a team and identity. They had shooters around them. This team with Zion this last week is also losing by 20 and 30 to the Pelicans. Monday and Wednesday, you put Zion on this team. So they're halfway in terms of the coach. I think they have the right guy in charge. But more importantly, they need all of those Isaiah Hartensteins and Mitchell Robinsons and all. Like you alluded to, the Knicks turning it around. It was because of all those pieces. Granted, they did need a Randall, but it could have been someone else. It happened to be Julius Randle, but they had all those pieces. They got the coaching and they created their own identity and found ways into the playoffs and to win games. And you're absolutely right. It brought in Brunson. I just think it's closer. Zion is closer to Ben Simmons than he is Julius Randle at this point in his career. Like if I told you one guy,
Ben Simmons plays more games than Zion Williamson. He does. To be fair, Ben is more active than Zion.
If I told you one superstar stopped caring about basketball and broke his jump shot and lost his confidence, and it wasn't Ben Simmons, who would you put your money on?
Zion.
You can't. Like I said, we've already dated enough crazy psycho exes. Let's just maybe take some time off to reset before we dive into more ridiculous contracts.
All right, so this is what I want to get. If I could swap Ben Simmons on an expiring deal, I've worked this deal out. Ben Simmons and 3-1. That would be the Knicks pick this year, the Knicks pick in 29, and our pick next year. And Ben Simmons. So you're getting an expiring deal in Ben Simmons and 3-1s. Would that be
the Nets pick next year?
Not in 25 and 26. So 26, the Knicks pick this year, the Knicks pick in 29. I see you making faces, so I'm guessing you don't like this deal.
No, but I mean, again, I just told you if who he could turn into next year. He could literally play 0 games, and then the Pelicans have your pick, and now it's again. I know you have Dylan, but like whoever you have, but now you just reset your franchise even further back, and you don't have the flexibility to sign 2 free agents that like the Dylan Harper or whoever you got and the role pieces you signed. You have none of that. Like go find the right role. We'll find the next Isaiah Hartenstein and Jalen Brunson and just don't do Zion. Don't and especially with 3-1s. You're doing them a favor. They would run and accept that, obviously. And they would know Zion is not going to win you games, and then they're going to have your pick next year and the 2 other next picks. No, there's no shot. That's not how you reset you don't reset your. That's basically what they get. 6-1s from Mikal Bridges, right?
Yeah.
So you're giving up half that to go get this, what is right now a terrible contract. So then you really only got 3-1s and Zion for one of the best contracts in the NBA. And Zion is not going to be that complimentary role player. He's going to need the ball in his hands. He's going to slow the ball down, or he's just not going to be there, or he's just going to be in a suit on the sideline. I'll pass.
I see a player that once he gets the ball, it's already too late. He's still a generational talent. He's still one of the most unstoppable forces the NBA has ever seen. He can still play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Like I don't even know what position Zion Williamson plays.
You're overrating him. You're overrating him.
Am I?
Yeah. You said he's not a he's a generational athlete. He's a generational finisher. He has amazing first step and leaping ability combined, right? But if his shot is not on, and he's not surrounded with 4 lights out shoot, like Zion's not giving me 40 every night. Zion's not. I'm not worried of Zion coming in and winning a playoff series on the road. Like you're talking generational talent, is what you said. Generational talents do all of that and more, and are MVP candidates year in and year out, and either will give you 40 or make everyone around them better. Zion has never done that, and it's never like his highlight reel is up there with some of the best of all time, but like half court offense, like transition too, one of the best transition players of all time, like generational transition athlete. Half court offense, no.
I see him getting the ball in the paint and him finishing at the same percentages that Shaq finished at, that Wilt Chamberlain finished at. Right? He gets the ball in the paint. It's too late. Who's gonna guard him? He gets the ball going downhill. Who's going to guard him? Look, I mean, I get he's not a complete offensive player. He can't score from all over the court. I understand, right? Like he can score from 15 feet and in. He can 12 feet and in. But once he gets the ball there, it's already too late. Plus, he can handle the ball like a point guard, and he's got vision like a point guard. Like
All right,
he's
how
a
about
great.
this? He's a half a step when he loses his first step and he loses that leaping ability by a half a step. He's Julius Randle, who we just mentioned.
That's probably fair. That's probably fair.
So he's just Julius Randle with freakish athletic ability.
More or less, yeah.
But I don't think
Yeah.
that makes him a generational talent. Like again, if you're not giving me 40 and you're not winning 2 playoff games on the road, game 6, game 7, you're not generational.
Well, I'm saying from a talent perspective, like we've never seen someone with
Yeah,
his
athletically. That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
Athletically in transition, finishing, all that. Yeah, he's generational athlete, but he's not generational basketball player.
I look at him and I just think like Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, and Giannis all went three-way on a love child, and this is the end result. Like there's something
Yeah,
that
and then
we've
that
never.
love child just wasn't as good at scoring and didn't care about basketball and didn't impact winning. Like it's I hear you. Like anybody seeing him dunk on little 12-year-olds and then seeing his shoe pop out at Duke and people wondering like is he gonna be a point guard? Is he gonna be a 5? Like because you saw him doing it against all these little kids and then but you've seen no evidence in the NBA. And these are other grown men that take their job very seriously and are all fighting for contracts. And he seems like he got his money and frankly doesn't care. Like I agree with you. He could be so much better, right? Like if he was his shot, in my opinion, shouldn't be as funky as it is. Doesn't have the same hitch it had since Duke. But like, does he care about it? No. Is he fine with 32% of his threes going in? Yes. So are we going to change everything? No, it's not going to change.
So here's my point. When I say, what has Zion Williamson improved since his rookie year? What part of his game has he improved on? The answer is like nothing, like not even anything. Like he's still the same player that he was as a rookie, which is not a great sign. It shows he doesn't like basketball. He doesn't want to, he hasn't improved on any weaknesses. He's still a raw, untapped talent that is, I think,
Here's what he is,
unstoppable.
though. Here's what he is to Brooklyn. He's a major name that would sell major jerseys and major tickets, and his face would be plastered everywhere. So if that has anything to do with it, that's going to change a lot, because you can't do that with Ben anymore. Like remember we saw the warm-ups on Monday and Wednesday night, and Ben Simmons and Cam Johnson, like it was a wild highlight video. They had to eliminate all the people they traded too, so it was even less and less guys to choose from. So they kept going back to Ben Simmons, and you're just like, wow, this is tough. If you're working in the PR or marketing department for the Nets, your life is a struggle right now. You know what I'm saying? Your life is an absolute struggle. If you all of a sudden you get Zion Williamson, that
Your
Zion
life
Williams
becomes
5 years
easy.
ago was like
Yeah.
the biggest name in basketball. Like Knicks fans were in absolute tears when they didn't win the lottery and didn't get the top 2 pick for Ja either. It was like our franchise is over. We're going to be the Knicks forever. Little did they know that would have worked out terribly for them, but Zion was the name. And if you're a 7-year-old that's now a 12-year-old, Zion is still that name. If you're a 12-year-old that's now a 17-year-old, Zion is still that name and that face that people want to see. So if that has anything to do with it, then I agree. We have a little better chance than I'm talking about Zion coming here. If it's strictly basketball, I don't think so as much.
So, like, that's my next question. Did Zion Williamson have? You didn't like my trade. What is his value in the league? If New Orleans was to trade him, what kind of return do you think they can realistically expect? How toxic is his name right now? Like, would anyone offer anything of note? And who really has the salary to bring in? Who has the cap space to bring in his salary? So the Nets have these things. They have the picks. But I'll let you answer the question.
All right, I'll give you a trade that came off the top of my head, and I'm sure everyone in the comments will disagree with me. But I've always hated Kristaps Porzingis on the Celtics. If I'm the Celtics, I'd rather have Zion. I don't care how many games he plays, period, than a KP. But I think it needs to be a team that is close to winning and that obviously has money to move and just thinks this could push them over the edge, over a Boston, over a Denver, over a New York, over someone, a team that's close to winning that thinks if this guy shows up in the playoffs and this guy could be our second or third piece, we can win a championship. And that's true. Like we've seen it with like Kawhi is a much different player, but like they had Serge Ibaka and Kawhi, they had people inserted into that team that all of a sudden was like, oh shit, Toronto is no longer just a good team that's here to play at the 6th seed and lose to LeBron every year. Like they're now a championship team when they made those couple moves and was like, fuck it, let's go for it. You know, it wasn't a long term solution with Kawhi and Serge and Marcus Gasol and all those guys, but and it wasn't guys that was guaranteed age or anything that was going to play. But I think Boston might not be the best example, but a team that needs to go for it, a team that just needs to go for it, whether it's a Philly or um, again, maybe it's Minnesota who just realized the Julius Randle thing is not working and they can reset the contracts better if they send Julius there. But someone that is winning, but is just like this. We know we're not going to get a championship with what we have on the roster right now. So let's say F it and go get Zion.
I just can't see it. Okay, you could be right. I can't see a team that's close risking it all on Zion. Like you're a Knicks fan, right? You want to make the salaries work? I'll trade OG for Zion. Would you? You know what I'm saying? There's no chance
No.
you
I'm not talking
ever
about
make
that.
that.
I'm talking about a team where it's not really work. Like, all right, Minnesota. I just brought up Julius Randle, right?
Minnesota for Julius Randle, yeah.
Julius Randle, and they give you like a Jaden McDaniel, like a young piece to go with Julius and a draft pick, and you're the Pelicans. You're like, all right, well, we can get out of this. I don't know what Randle's contract is. Maybe they can get out of the money a little bit sooner than Zion's money, right? But then you get a piece where obviously the whole NBA knows if Zion athletically works out and stays healthy, and Anthony Edwards and Zion are next to each other for the next 8 years, it's like highlight reels galore. It'll be every 12-year-old's dream to have those two on the same court. Athletically, is that the greatest duo of all time? Probably. Like there's a lot to sell your team on it. Looking at Randall's contract, he has a player option in 25, 26. So he's making 26, 26, 33, and then if he probably will accept that at 31, making 30. So it's a 4-year deal at almost 120. And Zion goes through 2027, 2028. So you're looking at 2 years more for Zion, and he's making 44, 42 those years. So if you want to get off a couple of years of money, like I said, you trade a Randall and you give him one more young piece and a draft pick, and obviously we don't. I don't know about other NBA fans, but nobody thinks the Timberwolves are going to go to a Western Conference Finals or make the leap forward to go to the finals this year with Julius Randle and the Rudy Gobert front court. But so yeah, a team like that, a team that's close to winning and needs to make an effort move to push themselves over the top,
So, I mean,
which is not the Brooklyn Nets. Let me make that clear.
So I mean, like what we say in boxing is, I don't want him in my gym. Like I don't care how good he is. I don't want him in my gym. You don't think it's at that point? Like there could be a team that would look at him and say, I'll
Oh
take
yeah,
him in my gym. Okay.
yeah, no, absolutely. I'm not. I'm as we're the Nets. I'm not. You're essentially investing your future in this trade if you make it. So that's what I'm
Yeah,
not
you're
doing.
to a large degree. You're right. You're giving him 40 million a year, but like the contract, if he's playing 50, 60 games a year. I'm not even asking him for 80. If he plays 55, 60 games a year, it's a good contract. It's $40 million a year. That's a good contract for him. Kuminga's going to get close to $40 million a year. OG gets $40 million. If he's playing where he's scoring 25 points a game on 60% shooting, and he's getting 6-7 rebounds, 60. If he's playing like Zion has played, it's a great contract.
It's a good contract. Yeah, it's a good contract. Again, you would hope he becomes a better shooter as you know, he's going to become less athletic over the course of his career as he gets older. So you're hoping he takes kind of like the Jason Kidd arc and learns that jump shot and because he becomes a great catch and shoot shooter. It changes everything about the trajectory of his career. But
Yeah, if he
if
can
he's
shoot a
still that,
corner three, he becomes the most unstoppable force ever. Yeah,
there we go. Until the NBA changes the rules on him very very soon.
yeah.
But yeah, he would definitely be attracted to some teams. I'm just not where the Nets are right now, where they're basically at zero. I'm not going to restart, and that's the guy who I'm hanging my hat on.
The next guy I wanted to get into real briefly, this has been all over Nets Twitter, is Giannis. Obviously, things aren't going great in Milwaukee. He's kind of a one-man show there. There still seems to be a lot left in Giannis at 30, 31 years old, whatever he is. This thing seems like it has legs. He's been linked that he says he wants Brooklyn. That's been linked to him. Any chance that Giannis, probably most likely in the offseason, is dealt? And is there a possibility? Again, you got to have the cap space to do it, that it could be Brooklyn.
For 3 reasons, yes. One, it's the NBA. So absolutely, superstars moving coast to coast, team to team, with a contract, without a contract, requesting for Dame, not working out. Absolutely, this sounds like it's going to happen. If anyone follows the NBA, this is just NBA storylines. This isn't something crazy that can happen. So one, it's the NBA, absolutely. 2, Brooklyn is in New York City still. Like they are not the New York Knicks. They are not the LA Lakers. They are in New York though. Giannis has, and I'm sure his agent can speak better to this, but Giannis has somewhat not disappeared, but taken a step back in the NBA's superstar. I guess I allude this because I'm always in kids with gyms with little kids. Um, the jerseys you don't see as much on the little kids, that where it was used to be Giannis, 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 especially um, after he won the championship and beat the Nets in that great playoff series. But he needs that. He needs to be propelled. Like he's obviously not done. He is one of the best stars in the league, right? But he's disappearing in Milwaukee. He's becoming that. Like he needs the Lou
He's a
Alcindor
little
trade.
limelight, a
Kareem
little
needs
luster again. Yeah.
there needs to be a big trade or something where all of a sudden, if he's inserted to the biggest city in the world and he's the biggest Greek freak star that New York has ever, like he would be revitalized. He'd be on in the front of every magazine. Do magazines still exist? You know what I'm talking about. He'd be on the
Yeah.
cover of everything. It'd be Giannis is in Brooklyn. Giannis is here. The Knicks fans would still call everyone little brothers. The rivalry would be back. His money off the field would, or off the court, would be absolutely insane. But yeah, but that third reason is basically the fact that he needs a big market, and where else is he going? Like, are the Lakers available right now? Are the Knicks available right now? Are the Celtics available right now? Or are the Heat, like none of these big market teams are available. So unless he wants to go hitch his wagon to Portland or and another Milwaukee and another no name team and then try to revigorate his career and his name again. If I'm his agent, I'm absolutely pushing for Brooklyn. Like you're stuck with Dame. It's not going to work in Milwaukee. And like you've done it all for Milwaukee. You're not going to be hated for leaving. You won them a championship. They've never seen a championship in God knows how long. It's like he's not going to be a bad guy if he makes this move. He tried it with Dame. It didn't work. Dame's got too much money. It's just with their roster and the money that they have locked in with those two guys, it's not going to work. So yeah, if I'm Giannis, like I said, need that revigoration of my career. Send me to New York and let all the papers know. I'll do all the interviews I can once I sign.
Here's my concern with that as a net fan. I think you're right. I think Brooklyn actually makes sense for him. But here's my he says it's about winning a championship. If you take a deal, a trade to the Brooklyn Nets, it's about anything but a championship.
That's not true. That's absolutely not true. Giannis, Giannis won a championship, right? He beat the big three, right? He went through the big three with Giannis and who?
Drew Holiday played exceptional in the finals. He did.
You're making my point for me.
Yeah.
Drew Holiday,
And
Chris Middleton, all these
your
we
boy
talked about in the
DiVincenzo.
Mikal Bridges contract. When we talked about that, these superstar role players. Yeah, Mikal Bridges is not XYZ. Drew Holiday is not XYZ superstar, but like these are guys when on the court, they're the guys that help win you the championship, period. Or win you that big playoff series, period. If the Nets would have had Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton instead of James Harden that series, they would have won that series. You know what I'm saying? It's just
Yeah.
those are the so I think Giannis also is listen, he made the move and made the big power move and said, go get me Dame. I want to be like LeBron, where I'm gonna go demand AD and then win a championship, or I'm gonna go Grant, I need this help. He realized that's not how the NBA works. You can't just go get a great player and get a great player and then fill in with a bunch of AJ Greens and Bobby Portises and expect it's gonna work out. You need a GM and a good GM to build a good roster that can win with depth, with players that don't need the ball in their hands, with players that can impact winning on both ends of the floor, again, without the ball in their hands. Those are all the players I just described. So Giannis, also, I think if he's smart enough and wise enough, and he's been in the league for long enough, and again, his agent and he's got basketball people in his ear, Brooklyn, as we talked about, has they have avenues and flexibility in the future. They've got expiring contracts. They got plenty of draft picks. Like this is the reset for Giannis, where again he doesn't need a pinpoint. I need Dame, but if they get a top 3 pick in here and a Giannis, and then obviously they would have Giannis, and then they could make another big free agent move and it'd be an attractive destination. Not saying they'd be 2025 championship contenders, but he can then see the future and see a vision where 2026, 2027, we're attractive, we have flexibility, we're in New York. This was an easier path to win than me staying in Milwaukee with Dame's contract and a bunch of guys on NBA minimums.
Yeah, they're a second apron team in Milwaukee. They've traded away most of their draft capital. They got Dame locked up. So, right, I mean, this is what it is. It's this or worse for Milwaukee. There's really no getting better, and this is not going to work, which is why I see it coming to an end. Like you said, same thing when LeBron left Cleveland the second time. It's like, oh, well, thank you for your service. Thank you for the memories. We got a championship, and that's
Well,
where
this is like LeBron leaving Cleveland the first time, except he won the championship. So they have nothing to complain about,
right,
Like they kept
exactly.
trying. They tried everything. They tried to get him Shaq. They tried to get him just every star he needed next to him. They tried to get him Jeff Green. They tried to get him more role players. They tried to make trades every year. They did the Giannis thing, except at least Giannis actually it worked out one year for them with Cleveland. It was. So I don't think it'll be that tearing of the Milwaukee fans and Giannis. They will thank him and he'll be a hero and his jersey will be in the rafters. I don't think it's an issue at all. That's why I see this light at the end of the tunnel for the Nets.
The last thing I wanted to touch on is Cam Johnson is still a part of the Brooklyn Nets. And I said if you wanted to tank, you had to trade him and Doe before the season started. And they're here, and he's playing better than you could have hoped for. But he's still here. So I have a two-part question. First, is he going to be traded before the deadline, or are they going to keep him as a salary filler to land a superstar like Giannis or something like that in the offseason?
I mean, it's an interesting transition to talk about Giannis and then Cam, which, as you just alluded to, immediately made me think of Giannis. Like these guys in the front office of the Nets and analytic department know more than you and I on the Nothing But Nets podcast, believe it or not. So if they have inkling from agents or people around the league that Giannis is going to ask to move, and that Brooklyn is one of his major destinations, and Cam Johnson simply helps facilitate that trade, both because he's technically like a young piece. Like I'm not saying Milwaukee can sell their fans on Cam Johnson, but he's making enough money. He's a young enough 3-and-D asset that he'll be in the rotation from Milwaukee. You're still getting like an NBA piece, where maybe if they're not getting the offers they want, and again, value wise, if they think they can get similar in the offseason, even if they don't get Giannis and that doesn't work out, it's worth it to keep that money and keep that contract if you're shooting for the stars with Giannis and you think that's a viable option in the offseason. Then there's no need to trade Cam when you think you can get, like I said, essentially the same or 80% on the dollar in the offseason. I don't think he's going to fall off that much if he even plays that much longer, but he'll be one of those guys. Probably will be lots of rest days if he ends up being on the Nets in the second half. He'll be one of the bruised shin candidates for sure.
I wanted to address this, right? Because Giannis seems like a pipe dream, but I remember 5 years ago saying there's a 0% chance the Brooklyn Nets get KD and Kyrie. Like, that's not going to happen. The Nets don't get nice things with the Nets. They got KD and Kyrie, and they ended up getting Harden, too, in a trade I hated. Cam Johnson would be a major piece. I don't know what kind, but I mean, there's a chance that they could get Giannis. Cam Johnson, you would think, would have to be a part of that trade, right? Like, you're not landing, you're not pulling off what the Knicks did, right? And getting Giannis for 6 draft picks. Like the Knicks got, Bridges, they didn't have to give any players. They just gave up picks. If you give up, and this was my concern about the Nets trade, because they don't really have a package that includes any players. Cam Johnson is the one player that's on a decent contract that you could look at that you could move, right? Like they don't have anyone else as far as players for Milwaukee, correct?
No, you don't. I mean, there's not a lot of money on the books now unless you're moving Claxton, but you're moving Claxton and Cam
There's
and some
no interest
force.
in that, right? Yeah, they're on
That's
similar contracts. Yeah, and there's no interest in Claxton.
yeah, that's not going to get Milwaukee or anyone excited. So yeah, again, it's the guys working for the Nets know a lot more than you and I do. So if Cam's not being moved, you would think um it's even if it's not for a Giannis, for another piece in the offseason where that money and a good he's an NBA rotation guy on 95% of NBA teams. So Cam still has some value, and it's not like you're missing out on two unprotected firsts by not trading him at the deadline. So if they're weighing what could happen for them this offseason, then yeah, it's a move that's probably a wise one that they're making, whether Nets fans are frustrated and want him off the team or not. They trust that the Nets know more than we do.
Here's to land Giannis. What would it? Is there any opportunity, any possibility that you could keep this year's one and Cam Thomas, or would one or both of those things have to go if you're landing Cam Thomas? I mean, if you're landing Giannis, is there any possibility I can keep Cam Thomas and this year's one?
I wouldn't think so. It depends on how ugly things get. Like if Giannis demands a trade and says it's only this team or this team kind of thing, then the Nets might have a little more leverage at the table. Um, try to can you trade all six of your Mikal Bridges trades back picks back and start there and with a couple of people like I would resist wanting to do that because obviously you want Giannis with a young star, but hey, maybe the Nets end up with the eighth pick this year, the seventh pick. You never know how it's going, and then all of a
Yeah,
sudden it's a different conversation. Then you're more willing to trade up. I would be at least trade
yeah.
this
If
year's
it's
pick.
7 or 8, yeah, I would trade it. If it's 1, 2, or 3, or yeah, it's going to
Yeah,
be
it would
difficult
definitely
to
be tough.
trade.
Exactly. So depends on where they land, and then it also depends on how much Giannis really. I guess it's a players' league, so it really depends how much he demands. If he does demand a trade, if he has these destinations, like he's not gonna, like I said, let him trade into Portland for a bunch of draft picks. That would just be a total lateral move for him.
And uh Giannis doesn't have any no trade clause, correct?
Who's
There's not
that?
a no. Giannis doesn't have a no trade clause in his contract.
I wouldn't think so. Actually, it could be possible. Then I would obviously trade everything.
Which is why I don't understand is like why teams feel like they owe you. The Nets did this. Like, okay, I'll trade you where you want to go. Why? Like, this is still a business at the end of the day. I'll trade you, but it's going to be on my terms, not yours. I'm going to trade you where I want to trade you, not where you want to go. I'm not Club Med. I can't just send you where you want. But if you want out, I will trade you. And like that's kind of like my feelings on. I do agree with you that Milwaukee will try to do a solid for him and trade him where he wants to go. But why do teams do that? Like this is a business. You want out? Okay, fine. I'm going to trade you to wherever I get the best deal.
I mean, I guess that's part of the business of it. Like, Giannis is not Wes Matthews, where he was a nice player for the Bucks and then you trade him where he went. Like Giannis is the reason why you have Bucks season
Championship.
ticket holders
Yeah.
for the next 40 years and why kids will be buying them in 2050 because they grew up watching Giannis. So it's like guys like that hold a different status in an NBA organization where he has the owner's cell phone number and can text him at any time of the day and vice versa. Again, like Wes Matthews didn't have that luxury. So when you have the owner's cell phone number and him texting you, you just have more leverage and like you're the one that they're gonna call to come back 40 years from now for Bucks alumni night when they are remembering the championship team and they're trying to make another $1 million off the back of your name, just like they'll do for the rest of your career. So to not burn bridges with guys like that you like again, Giannis is probably the greatest Buck of all time, and they want him to like live in Milwaukee forever after he's retired and come to Boston, like I said, and live off of his name forever and ever and ever. So I guess that would be my answer. Is that again, it's another business move where it's like, yeah, you would want that extra first round draft pick and send him to Portland. But then if he doesn't come back for the next 30 years and he hates you, and now you're like, who was it? Calvin Johnson, who hated the Lions forever until they had to, because whatever business deals happened, he never wanted to come back to anything. Like, you just want to avoid situations like that. You want Patrick Ewing coming back to the Garden and Melo and saying hi to all the fans, and not an owner and a player that hates each other. So that would be my only guess.
All right, Nate. Appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. Giannis, give it a percentage. What percent chance is it that Giannis plays for the Nets in 25-26?
49% chance he gets traded.
Okay.
25% chance it's on the Nets.
25 is not terrible. That's 1 in 4. That's not terrible odds. I'll take that. And let me just ask you before you go, would you be in favor of this if you're the Nets? Or does it not fit your time frame? I think it's crazy. Like, if you can get Giannis at 30, you got 4 years left. That's an eternity in the NBA. Let's see what we can do with it. Would you be in favor of the Nets throwing the rebuild away and going in with Giannis?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Absolutely.
I tend to agree with you. All right, Nate. Appreciate your time. It's January 14th, 2025, from Texas to the world. Thank you, and God bless.